Hey everybody, it's Angie. I'm just outside Zion National Park, finishing up a tour of the Mighty Five National Parks of Utah with Utah Luxury Tours. If you are interested in heading to the national parks, email Angie at tripswithangie.com. I would love to email back and forth with you about the pros and cons of self-drive versus group tours. And I'm going to have an upcoming webinar all about it. So let me know in the comments or email me if you're interested. In this video, I'm going to take you through what it's like to be on a small group tour. And when I say small, I mean 8 to 9 people throughout all of Utah. Now, Utah Luxury Tours did give me a discount to experience this, but they didn't ask me to make this video. I'm happy to do it because of the great experience we had, but I don't think this tour is for everyone, and I'll explain as we go through the pros and cons of taking a small group tour. So let's get started. We started our tour in Salt Lake City. If you're flying west to Salt Lake City, be sure to grab a window seat. The views are absolutely incredible flying into Utah. We checked into the Little America Hotel for one night at the start of our tour. It's a king-size bed. It had a separate living room area with the couch and desk and 2 chairs. And this looks out onto Main Street. This was really well located. There were several restaurants within a 15-minute walk. You have an open closet and then a good-sized bathroom with 2 sinks, toilet, and shower. You do get shampoo, conditioner, and lotion. Then it was time to head to lunch. We went to White Horse Spirits and Kitchen. This was delicious. It was a great choice, very busy for lunch. We really enjoyed the Brussels sprouts with the Asian sauce and peanuts, and I really liked the steak sandwich. It had a great sauce and cheese, and the steak was cooked perfectly. Then after lunch, we actually went back to the hotel and took a nap. But if you're looking to do something, I recommend the Natural History Museum of Utah. It has an incredible exhibit about the dinosaurs and the geology of the area. This is a perfect appetizer for this type of tour. For dinner, we headed to Level Crossing Brewery, about a 10-minute walk from the hotel. It had a large number of draft and canned beers available, but we were really here for the pizza. The pizza was absolutely delicious, coming straight from a wood-fired oven. We hit the road for a 4-hour drive down to Canyonlands National Park. We stopped just outside the park for lunch at a dinosaur museum and then headed inside this absolutely gorgeous national park. You can see both the Green River and the Colorado River. This is the Mesa Arch, one of the most famous photograph areas within the park. We also headed to the Green River Overlook. The Green River moves slower than the Colorado River, so the canyons here don't have the steep cliffs like you would find in the Grand Canyon that was formed by the faster moving Colorado River. Now, this was my favorite viewpoint in Dead Horse Point State Park. After all of our sightseeing, we headed to Moab, where we checked into Gravity Haus for the evening. This was a very cool hotel in a great location. You can see it's open year-round. It's ready for all types of active gear to hang up after a day outside. It came with a nice coffee maker. You have a mini fridge in case you wanted to pick up some snacks. The sink is outside the bathroom for washing up right when you get back into the room. And then, of course, you have a shower with your shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and lotion. We had dinner at Moab Brewery. We were really impressed here. The beers and the food came out quickly. It was all very tasty and it had a great vibe. You could sit here on the tavern side or on the dining room side. I had the pulled pork sandwich, which was really good. It just needed some more sauce. The chicken wings were okay, kind of standard bar food, but we were really impressed with the salad. It was absolutely delicious with the spinach, avocado, and bacon. The next morning, we got up early to head to Jailhouse Cafe to fuel up for our day of sightseeing. I had the eggs Benedict that were delicious. You should also try their bacon. All right, so we hit the road. This is part of the changing landscapes as we headed towards our first stop, which was Arches National Park. We headed to the Balanced Rock Trail. Now, this rock was originally in the marketing for the park because they said it was going to fall over to get people out there. I will not go on a national parks tour without a guide. Dan did an incredible job getting down in the sand to explain to us how the erosion was exactly working. He explained what we were seeing, how these arches were formed, what the geology of the area was, and how it had been changing over time. You would just miss so much by just showing up and taking a pretty picture. Now, this is the double arch. I think it looks like Bowser from Super Mario. Let me know what you think. But we talked about how the erosion formed these spires and how they would continue to evolve over over time. Plus, being able to go to all the parks, you see the changing landscape. We also went to Double Arch Trail. Now, this is where a group tour may not be for everyone. You don't really have a lot of time to do the longer hikes unless you were doing a private tour where you had set up that in advance. But we had kind of different levels within our group, so we kind of had to stick to the more accessible, shorter hikes. The Sand Dune Arch Trail is a great trail. You have a small little slot canyon to sneak through, and then you end up in this beautiful red sand, checking out this great sand arch. After lunch, we pulled over at the side, on the side of the road, and I was so grateful to have a guide, because looking at this, I don't know about you, but I can't pick out the petroglyphs. But then Dan really narrowed us into where they were. You're able to see in this one, there's a big bear in the middle, but then there's also small sheeps and goats around, and then even tinier little human figures with bows and arrows. I think it's an instruction for how to kill a bear. Like, make sure you're really far away and you use a bow and arrow. My husband and I grabbed a quick dinner at Canyon Pizza Company, which was very good because we were headed to High Point Hummer and ATV for an off-road adventure. So we were taking off in these old military Hummers that they had redesigned to have more seats. We got the front row. You can see my 6'4" husband was a little tight, but I was happy to be in the front. It wasn't as bouncy. And we headed out to off-road in this beautiful landscape, and it was an adventure. So some very steep inclines up to 35%. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it feels like a lot when you're hanging off the side of a mountain. But the scenery was absolutely stunning. It looks like sand dunes, but it's actually petrified sand dunes. So this is stone, and it has petrified so that you can see how the wind used to come over the dunes, but that's actually rock. Now, this is the Jeep behind us. After we came down this kind of gnarly incline, I thought our guide was joking when he said, yeah, the hardest part is getting used to when the back tire lifts off, as you just saw. I thought he was kidding, and he was like, no, watch them do it. And you can see as they go over just a couple seconds ago how the back tire lifts off. So this is definitely off-road. Need a proper vehicle for these stunning views. It was so neat just to see the sun as it started to come down. Our guide JP was awesome, full of information. He's pointing out some dinosaur tracks here. We got to see the sunset. If you don't want to go on a Hummer, you can drive these ATVs. You can drive it yourself or have a guide. And then here was our way back to the start point. Again, it's a little rocky, little bumpy, but a lot of fun. The next morning, we got up and stopped at Sweet Cravings to pick up breakfast and a to-go lunch. I absolutely loved their sandwiches. I also had their Asian salad for lunch, and it was really good. Our first stop was the Mill Canyon Dinosaur track site. Again, super glad to be on a guided tour. I don't know that I would have stopped here if I was doing it for myself. Here, Dan is pointing out an indentation from when they think a crocodile did a belly slide. They found these remains when they were digging the power lines, and they were able to clean them up so you can find these incredible prehistoric dinosaur tracks. It's so cool to see it out in real life. And next up was more petroglyphs. I was so happy not to be driving or navigating and figuring out where all these places were. Dan did a great job pointing out the petroglyphs to us. You can see these were a little more intricate, had more details, have some baskets. Goblin Valley State Park was where we stopped to have our picnic lunch. What a gorgeous view. Such a fun place to explore. This stop was a great example about why I love going on these guided tours. I don't know that I would have included Goblin Valley State Park as our spot for lunch if I was designing this by myself, just reading guidebooks. Back in the car, I was able to enjoy the views as Dan narrated how the changing landscape came about. And then he pulled over at the side of the road to point out this granary. I would not have seen that, to tell you the truth. These are storage containers. They were built with mud bricks. We're near a river here, thousands of years old. They would store corn or pots in here to be able to grab them as they traversed up and down the river. We also got our first little wildlife with a lizard on a volcanic rock. Capitol Reef National Park is a great option if you love off-roading. We didn't take the time on this itinerary to do that, but we were able to enjoy a lot of the views. We saw some mule deer in the camping area, Giffords is famous for its pie. If you get there early enough in the morning, a lot of people recommend that. And then here you can see the beautiful landscaping, the different colors for the different layers of rocks. The red is the iron in the rocks oxidizing as it reaches the surface. You can see at the top of some of these rocks, there's a cream colored layer that's on top of the iron layer. So that part hasn't eroded yet. And at this great viewpoint, Dan brought us to do stargazing later in the evening. We stayed at the Red Sands Hotel and Spa. It was just a good standard hotel. It had everything we needed. It had self-service laundry. So that was great to do a load of laundry to get rid of some of the dust, open closet, and then sink outside the bathroom with a shower tub combo inside. The restaurant at the hotel was very good. I had a Wagyu and bison burger that was delicious. And my husband had the vegetarian lasagna, which was also very good. The next morning, we set off on a very winding road towards Bryce Canyon. We took a couple stops along the way. Here, we're admiring the Escalante Grand Staircase Monument area. Then we headed to Mossy Cave Trail, which is just outside the park. A great trail for families. You can head down to the creek, do some creek stomping, or head up a small incline to Mossy Cave. You can't actually go inside the cave. It's a little anticlimactic because it's not that big, but it is fun to see. For lunch, we stopped at Canyon Diner and had just a good fast food lunch. And then we headed up to Bryce Point. Spoiler alert, Bryce Canyon is not actually a canyon as it was not formed by a river. But there's my husband and I at Bryce Point, and you can see it's absolutely gorgeous with all the different colors, stunning landscape. Natural bridge, guess what, isn't actually a bridge, it's an arch based on the way it's formed. Most tours spend about half a day in Bryce Canyon enjoying the scenic overlooks. As we headed towards Zion, our guide took us through the Mount Zion Carmel Tunnel. This hole you can see is part of the tunnel. This was a huge ad because Google Maps takes you around this tunnel. So if we didn't have a guide, we might not have made it. And then there's a view of that hole from the inside. We stayed at the Driftwood Lodge in Springdale, which is just outside of Zion National Park. It was a great hotel. I loved it. It was my favorite of all the ones we stayed at. It had everything you needed, very comfortable. I don't know why we kept ending up in rooms with 2 beds. We didn't specifically request it, but it was fine with us. The bathroom had a bathtub as well as a shower. And again, all of the hotels had shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and lotion. But this is why it was my favorite, was this beautiful patio with this incredible view. On our own, we had made dinner reservations at Bit and Spur. It's a southwestern restaurant. We booked to sit outside, so you could book the cantina or the outside seating. Highly recommend. We had the corn fritters, which is kind of like an elotes, a corn with seasoning and kind of a mayo. I had the pork chili, which was amazing. I absolutely loved it. My husband had the pork burrito. His was also very good. Highly recommend this restaurant in Springdale. And this was a view of me getting up in the morning and sitting outside with my coffee at the Driftwood Lodge. For breakfast, we headed to Oscar's Cafe. This was a great choice. Their pancakes were incredible, the fluffiest pancakes I've ever had. They had great service, really quick in and out. And then we headed to the River Walk in Zion National Park. You do need to take shuttles throughout. And then here's Dan explaining to us about the water.
Snowfall or rainfall from 2,000 years ago. And it fell up there and slowly works its way through the sandstone, gets down to this harder mudstone layer that we've been talking over.
That same water makes its way out of cracks in the rocks, which allows plants to grow, including flowers like orchids. This trail ends with the entrance to the Narrows for more adventurous hikers. For lunch, we headed to the Zion Lodge and we had a great lunch. I really enjoyed their turkey club sandwich and potato salad. Then it was time to make the 4.5-hour drive back to Salt Lake City. Now, overall, this was an incredible tour. I think if you're going on any kind of escorted tour, you're going to give up some freedom and flexibility because you are with strangers. They're trying to have an itinerary that appeals to everyone, but you get that added benefit of the incredible guides and their knowledge. You can book a private tour. I can arrange that for you where it's just your itinerary. So you can do all the hikes you want, spend all the time you want. That's a perk of working with me to help design that. And then you also can do it yourself. If you do a self-drive, just know that whoever's driving is going to miss out on some of the views. You may not get all the information or as much of an appreciation for the geology that you're witnessing in this part of the world. You're not going to see a lot of animals on this itinerary. So I think having that geological knowledge really makes the landscape come to life. We headed back to Salt Lake City for the night, back to a little America. We had one last sushi dinner after so many like bar and pub dinners. This was a great change of pace at Edo. The next morning, I had booked a private tour to Antelope Island State Park, which was wonderful. We saw 3 coyotes. They were so close. This is a little bit zoomed in, but they were very close to the road. We got really lucky. We also saw these 2 burrowing owls, the one lower one poking up out of the burrow, and we saw a pronghorn just standing in the field. She's pregnant and she was kind of stomping her foot. And then we saw a huge herd of buffalo walking across, and you can see the one in the back wallowing in that really good dirt pit and the little babies. So it was an incredible morning out on Antelope Island before our late flight. For lunch, we headed to Red Rock Brewery. This was a favorite from a previous visit. The food there is so good. This time we had the wood-fired brie, which was excellent, and I had the turkey Reuben, which was very good. So that was the tour. Let me know, would you do a small group? Would you get your friends together? How would you see the national parks? Let me know in the comments.